This is TABcast, brought to you by the Alternative Board,
helping business leaders improve their business for a better life. Hello and welcome to episode 7 now of TABcast, brought to you by the Alternative Board. Today's session is a session where we're going to discuss something that I'm particularly passionate about, and that is the world of sales. You're going to hear from 3 great sales leaders today, all from very different sectors, who are going to share their knowledge and experience with you. If you haven't heard of TABcast before, do register with us on Spotify or on YouTube. But let me introduce today's guest, Rob. Thank you for coming along. Give us a quick overview of you and your business.
Sure. So I'm Rob Wilkinson, and I kind of wear 2 hats, Liam. So my first hat is I'm a founder of a company called GRC Hub, Governance, Risk and Compliance Hub, and we're all about the 3 pillars in a business. So governance, risk and compliance, and helping assist with that. The other hat I wear is I'm also a sales consultant at the Northern IT Academy, NITA, which focuses on DevOps, AI, and strategy. So balancing my time between the 2 nicely.
Okay, and we'll certainly dig into a little bit of the sales structure around that, because again, as we've already discovered, certainly not a transactional sale. Johnny, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Tell us a little bit about your business, the role that you do, and particularly a focus on the sales element of things.
Good to be here. Thanks, Liam. Johnny Parkinson. I work for Elise UK, which is part of a global hygiene, laundry and textile company headquartered out of France. So big organisation across 30 countries. My direct role day to day is for the plant in Wakefield, and then a responsibility there for lots of things, including sales, ensuring that performance and relationships are helping our P&L objectives.
That key word again, which I'd like to pick up, relationships, and relationships within sales. That's one thing we'd like to uncover today. Jenna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Liam. My name's Jenna Rigg from a company called Singularity. So I look after sales and marketing there. We're an IT company. So we provide a fully managed service to lots of different types of businesses all across the UK, but predominantly in Yorkshire.
Great stuff. So we have 3 sales professionals in slightly different sectors. I'd like to start by, did you always imagine, Jenna, that you'd have a career in sales? And what is the biggest challenge around your role when it comes to sales?
Okay, so I always imagined that I'd be an actress when I was at school.
And you're in sales.
Which it's really strange, isn't it? Because, you have to be a bit of a chameleon, they say. I started out, I've always enjoyed people, getting to know people. And I think that's the reason why I ended up in a career of sales. I think the biggest challenge for me has been managing rejection while staying motivated. That's been my biggest challenge. So I'm sure we can all agree that we've probably had more no's than we have yeses. And it's getting your head around that and remembering that you're not going to be for everybody. Your product and service is not going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
So over time, it's about really drilling down into, right, who can I help? How can I help them? And making sure that you're going out and helping those people to buy rather than selling to them, if that makes sense. But it is a challenge. Every human, I think, struggles with rejection. Right?
And in sales, we have to get used to that.
Absolutely.
Let's pick a little bit of that up as we get through today's episode. Johnny, your background in sales, how you got into it, and your biggest challenge?
I mean, my background is operational, and I am absolutely by default in my younger days an ops guy. Yeah. So salespeople were the people who walk around with shirts and ties, and I didn't look up on a particularly favourable way. As I moved through business, I learned more about how key that was really, and actually these people who maybe I looked at in a certain way were actually essential in a business.
Yeah.
And then certainly moving into, and I've never sold directly, I've never had a sales target personally or been a salesperson. I've made that development straight into being a business leader who needs sales to feed his business.
Yeah.
And really uncomfortable with that to start with. And I think you touched on it there, that rejection piece and what people think. And when you walk into a meeting, well, why did they just not take this product? It's a really good product. I really struggled with. I think as I've developed that now at times, really learned about, we talked about this just before actually we came in, really understanding your product.
Yeah.
really understanding who you are selling to actually makes that process so much easier. And I enjoy not having a direct sales target, because when I go into a room, I can be much more relaxed. And I often think I wish I could give that to my salespeople, to just put them at ease when they walk in a room. I see when I'm with them sometimes there's a real anxiety about, I need to make this sale for that commission check.
Okay.
I'm approaching it from a really different angle, and probably helps me get over what you just touched on there around that rejection piece.
Great. So we've picked up some great words already, haven't we? Relationships, rejection, target setting, and pushing yourself on to be the best you can be. Rob, how long have you been in sales? And your biggest challenge within your role when it comes to sales?
Sure. So I kind of fell into sales to an extent. I did business studies at university, Leeds Beckett, or as many know it, Leeds Poly, Leeds Met. And I met a gentleman at a grad fair, performed relatively well on the sales side doing business studies, and I thought, quite like this.
Yeah.
I quite like helping people solve problems. And that's kind of the direction I went. I've been in there for 8 years now, just moved on from my previous employer. So yeah, I love every bit of it, but definitely resonate with the rejection piece. That's really difficult to deal with. And I think sales can be counterintuitive. We all want to fix a problem or solve a client's problem, but we've also got sales targets. Not necessarily in your case, but we've got sales targets to hit. So trying to measure between kind of fixing that problem, but also hitting the target is a big challenge for sure.
So let's pick up on this word rejection. No matter how good you are at sales, there's always going to be a time when people say no. And in our world, we often think, well, no, getting a no is far better than getting a maybe, because a no will lead hopefully on to some clarity, and then we move on to the next opportunity. But rejection, we've all gone through times when we think we've done a good job, and then that prospect, that customer, for whatever reason, goes quiet. Technical terms called ghosting. Yeah. Give us some hints and tips of about, firstly, how do you deal with that? And more importantly, how do you make sure that that doesn't happen, particularly in kind of a relationship-based sale?
First piece, qualification. That's the foundation of it, really. You
That's
need
of them, not of you.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, for sure. So understand the client's needs, understand what's involved in the decision making, what they're looking to achieve, having a champion in there ultimately. If you built that relationship from day one and you understand the person and the organisation, the likelihood of being ghosted is less. It's not zero. There's always that likelihood. I've had several deals where it's a banker, in essence. I thought I'm getting that business, but things outside of your control come in. Ultimately, we've all heard the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Very much applies. I've had some instances where I've been given a purchase order, and then that particular business has then gone through an acquisition process, and they've said, nope, no additional expenditure now, despite what's gone on. So whilst you've got your decision maker in there and you've qualified it the best you can, sometimes there's just influences outside your control and outside of your champion's control where it doesn't quite go your way.
And you just have to accept that and get a high level of resilience and move on.
For sure.
Yeah. Thoughts on the world of, if you think things are going well, how do you deal with that element of, oh, things have gone quiet? And I guess more importantly for your role, Johnny, is how do you keep the motivation of the rest of the team when they do have that sales target?
I think often for me, it's about how do you make that one deal not that important? And I say that because we're always going to get rejected. You're always going to get that no. And I think certainly in my early days, you would see a deal and you would cling on to it and you'd be holding, and that would be the one that was going to change the year or it was going to change the budget. My focus now with the team is what's in that pipeline. Do we understand our figures so that, okay, if we lose it, we absolutely want to understand why we've lost it. We want to look at that. We probably do want to be a little bit frustrated and think about how could we perform better, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all. So for me, with my team, I'm often using the phrase of it's gone, it's dead, it's buried. What's next?
Yeah.
So I think it's changing that mindset to be much more proactive, much more positive in it. Let's have a look at it. Let's undress it. Why did we lose it? Was it price? Was it our connection, our relationship? Had we done the qualification? Absolutely. We take that and we improve going forward. But I think it's about all the things we do around that one deal to make it not that important. Now, customer's always important.
Yeah.
But in terms of just looking at it as a raw number, how do we make that number not critical to our success? We should have lots of those dotted around that we're working through. So for me, it's about driving that positive culture around generating lots of leads, generating lots of opportunity, and almost desensitizing people to, oh, we've lost it, it's the end of the world. It's not.
desensitizing, de-risking.
Yeah,
Pardon me.
absolutely.
Come on, people.
Well, I want to back up on the qualification, because I think it's important for you to qualify, are they right for me, but also are we right for them? But for me, it's all about the discovery. So I feel like if you've got to the point of what their challenges and frustrations are in their business, and you've understood that correctly, when you come to the point of proposing that solution, that proposal is going to read, I get you, I understand.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in my experience, when I've been ghosted, I've reflected back on how that sales process has gone from qualification right through to being ghosted, and nearly always I've got something wrong at the discovery phase. But I also think there's some ways that you can prevent that earlier on. So giving them the opportunity and feel comfortable and confident to say, that might not be quite right for me, it may need some tweaking. And also, I think presenting the proposal in person is better than just emailing it. So when you've had that discovery meeting, actually getting a date in the diary to say, right, when are we gonna, I'm gonna go away and I'm gonna put a proposal together for you. When can I come back in and present that to you? And you've got a call to action straight away, and then all the way through you're strengthening that relationship. And I think that those parts together.
We've really unpicked something there, because again, when I get to meet loads of business leaders, they will say that they send a sales proposal out via email.
Yeah.
You're almost giving the prospect the permission to ghost you. So taking that point of, I have a proposal, I'm looking forward to sitting down, going through and answering any questions that you have for me, is a great opportunity really to get a sense of, is that a warm opportunity for you? So, there's a little hint and tip of, don't hide behind a commercial deal via an email.
Yeah.
Go and see the client.
Well, if you think about all the effort we put in at the front end to get to know that prospect in front of you, that person, showing a genuine interest in them and their business, and actually working through all the challenges and pain points and problems, why would you then just send a proposal? Like, why wouldn't you want to sit down and get excited about this solution is going to change your life in whatever way?
And it's just IT.
And IT's the backbone of many businesses. I mean, it's needed.
Absolutely.
So
I think you're right to pick up on the two-way street, though. I've had several prospects where they've come to us and it's not been a perfect fit, but the relationship is far more important than the one-off deal. We've all got targets we want to hit, but I've referred several prospects onto competitors because simply their solution is a better fit for them, and you're gaining that relationship and that trust with that prospect in that, yes, you might have given away a deal there and then, but in the long term, they'll respect the honesty of, actually, maybe we're not a perfect fit. And then you've got that
100%.
relationship and it'll pay dividends in the long term.
Yeah.
There's a massive piece in there as well about accountability.
Yeah.
So you can send a proposal and absolutely doing what you've said there is, but I think sometimes when we think we've got a relationship or a partnership, as a sales, you're the nice person because you're trying to tease them in. Actually, a good, strong partnership and relationship is you can hold that person to account.
Yeah.
Even if it's prospect, and say, you committed to coming back to me on this date, or with the salesperson being really accountable to get in front of them and really face that up. And I think sometimes that accountability piece, for me, that's always a true test of, did we have a real relationship, or were they leading us down the path, or did we not do our discovery correctly? And it's often a word that's missed in that sales process.
Accountability, a big part of our life at the Alternative Board. Give us some questions that you want to ask a client in order to understand their desire of moving forward.
That's the first question. Absolutely, for me, every time. What is the desire? What is your desire, and what is the motivation for change? That's what I'm always trying to understand. And often price will come in there, service, but and then ultimately with that individual, trying to understand what's that individual's motivation, because sometimes you can make that person look really good in their business. If you understand what their driver is. Procurement people are usually driven on cost saving, but then in our world, in the hygiene world, we might be meeting a procurement person who's driven on that cost, but then we'll meet another stakeholder who's got a totally different driver in keeping people safe.
Yeah.
And they're interested in that product. That product might then not drive a cost saving. So really important to understand what the organization's desire and motivation is.
Balancing the needs of individuals. Yeah. We've touched on their rejection. We've touched on that other R of relationships. How do you go about building relationships? Let's say with that one individual, what's the secret of building good relationships to build that know, like, and trust?
The first thing I like to do, and this is with a prospect, whoever I meet, is find something unique about them. First conversation. It's the first thing. So often you'll join a meeting. If you join a couple of minutes late, you'll hear a couple of chaps talking about the football. That's pretty common, who they support. But every single person I meet, I like to get an interesting fact about them, an interest about them. So when it comes to then following up on that, there's something outside of work we can build a relationship based on. If we've got something in common, it's great. People like going on holidays. People like going to different places, it's things like that. Do you enjoy a sport? Do you like doing certain things? And then you can always talk outside of work and build that relationship. And often when you're joining these meetings, those conversations go on for too long sometimes. I've joined a meeting and we're still talking about football after half an hour kind of thing. But I think it's so important to build that relationship outside of strictly, this is why we're talking to do business.
Yeah. Build rapport for 3 or 4 minutes so that they want to spend the rest of the hour with you, is what it's about. But a really nice line of about finding something unique about someone. You've touched on different stakeholders within businesses. How do you go about building relationships, effective relationships with different people within one client base?
I think again, this is about using your specialists. For us, we as a large organisation, we have specialists in different areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the salesperson or the sales consultant's not always going to be the best person in that moment. They've got a commercial focus. So what we'll absolutely do is through qualification and discovery, if we then go into a tender meeting or a presentation meeting and we know the health and safety executive for that business is going to be in there, who's the right person to be talking to that person? And often we'll mirror that with our organisation to make sure we've got the right knowledge, because and I've seen it and I've done it. I've gone in there and sat in front of a health and safety guy who, and I know quite a lot based on what I have to do in my role, but I'm not an expert. And I've sat there and had conversations and been out of my depth. And I think then you lose credibility in your product or your sale.
So taking that to a smaller business, I think what we're saying there is we often get to meet the business leader, the MD, the owner. But actually, a great way to build sales and relationship is bring experts in. Even if you've only got a small team, bring in your designer, bring in your tech support, whatever it is that you're doing, show a level of building your organization in the eyes of the prospect.
The business owner's not, or the business leader's not always the best person to sell the product 100%, because you've got your vision and you know what you want. And we were talking about this outside about, you've got a set vision, somebody and somebody asks for something, you might start to curve away from your process. I think we were talking about that with different IT packages. You're quite driven on, this is our package and we're not going to work in this lane.
Yeah.
I think then to bring that to someone who's really operationally focused maybe, and to put those two people together and then they start talking quite technical, it's a much better conversation than somebody maybe in my position or a sales leader's position or a business owner's position selling their dream.
Yeah.
Get to that reality point.
You're spot on, and it's recognising who you're dealing with, and if you progress in a sale, it's realising we're in this position here, we're talking to someone technical, is there going to be some value in bringing someone equally as technical on our end? Rather than talking about the vision, as you said, we need to get into the detail at this point, and it's recognising when them triggers come in, and that's what makes success.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I can recognise a lot in that. I mean, I've actually lost a couple of opportunities in the past within Singularity because it's been a bit too technical for me. So we implemented like a technical discovery call. So now I know the triggers and the questions to ask so that I know when to bring in that technical role, because I've recognised quite quickly that this person wants to understand the tech. Whereas most businesses I speak to firsthand, they're not interested in the tech, they just want it to work.
Yeah, they want the end result.
Yeah.
It's interesting again there. I mean, we've all been in sales presentations as well. People come in with PowerPoints and the supplier tells you what they do. To me, and I don't know whether anyone would agree or disagree with this, but best salespeople we see out there are the ones that ask the best questions. And it's about understanding the needs of the client. So we've touched a little bit on rejection. We've touched a little bit on relationships. One of my bugbears when I get to meet people and we talk about ideal customer profile, and they make a very bold statement and say, I can work with anybody. Yeah. Your reaction when you hear that, because I sense that there is a group of people here who know who their ideal customer profile is. How do you go about identifying who that is, and what advice would you give to someone who often says to me, I can work with anyone? Who's your ideal customer? Anyone. Well, how do you go about almost segmenting that opportunity, Rob?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because you don't want to be perceived as the Del Boy of the sales world ultimately. You need to choose your niche and focus on it because to really understand something, you need to be heavily involved in it. So if you're looking at a specific vertical or an industry, if you're in amongst it, you're going to fundamentally understand it. And people want to work with people who fundamentally get it. So I think if you're too widely dispersed, you will portray that image and you need to understand the customer needs fully. So if you haven't done that work before, it's very difficult.
Johnny, your take on identifying who you want to work with?
That might be the wrong question to ask because when Jenna asked me what our ideal customer was outside, I said anybody. So you're probably asking the wrong person. I might be that dull boy, maybe, I don't know. But it is important. I think sometimes if you've got an array of products or one product, it's been really clear in what that looks like. But it's bringing the salespeople on that journey with you so that they're really clear.
Yeah.
I think what I've seen in the past personally is we bring a salesperson in, they get basic training. Here's a target, get in the car and off you go knock some doors. And have we really sold them into what the customer looks like and why? I think the why is really important. Why do we want that customer in this business? Because I have contracts come to me and we sign them and I look at it. It's within our product range, but it's not really ideal for what we want. And everybody in a footprint is really clear, but the salespeople can sometimes they just sit on the edge of it. Let's bring them in and let's make them really clear on, what's the territory. And by doing that as well, I think I always say to the sales team is we can help you. If you understand what our ideal customer is, it maybe helps your price point because it fits our model really well. And then we can be really competitive in what we're trying to sell. I think building that knowledge base within a salesperson so they really understand the why is really important in that. Not just go sell, here's a target. Why we want that customer, why it's this product, why it's that territory is really important, and sometimes that can be missed.
And I think, that's such a powerful word, isn't it? Why? It's also understanding why you're in the room. What's that client seeing, or what challenges have they got, which means you now have an opportunity? Why are you there? Yeah. I think, anyone involved in sales, it's a great question to ask yourself is, why am I here? I don't quite know. So I'll better ask questions as to understand 100%. The need from that particular prospect. We're all lovely people. We've talked about rejection. We don't like rejection with people. We like relationships and building relationships, and we can add great value. Why has sales got such a bad rap? Why is it people switch off either coming into the world of sales or indeed in the eyes of the prospect? Why?
I think from a business owner's point of view that wears several hats, it comes down to mindset and confidence sometimes.
Yeah.
Going back to the bad rap, I think that some salespeople they've not understood, they don't listen actively to what the prospect in front of them is saying.
Yeah.
They want to just sell anything to anybody. They're not really interested in helping people buy. They just want to sell the product and service and meet a target. But I think from a business owner's point of view, it goes deeper than that. A lot of people shy away from sales. They're really good at what they do. They set up a business, but actually they've not got the confidence or the right mindset to sell themselves. And it comes back to a confidence thing. I've worked with several different people that are absolutely amazing at what they do, but they're very technical, and they just don't have those people skills. They don't find it easy to build rapport. They don't like people. They prefer computers. I've met a few of those types of people. So I do think that mindset plays a part on, why people shy away from sales.
What type of mindset then should someone who is, even as a business leader, even as a BDM setting out, what are we looking for? A mindset of people who can be successful within the section of sales. What mindset is it that is common between them?
So for me, having interviewed salespeople at the beginning of the journey, it's always interesting because they've got no sales history. You're looking for core traits, you're looking for attributes. They've got to be driven. If they're not driven, they're going to struggle in sales. Sales is 24/7 ultimately, or you've got to treat it that way. If a customer or a prospect has a requirement, you want to do all you can to meet that requirement. And if I meet someone and I can see they haven't got the core attributes around sales, which in my head is drive, resilience, all these skills from day one, after a couple of years, I can't see them sticking in that career ultimately.
It's driven. I remember a young man, and he'll be listening to this, and he would say he would get the majority of his meetings between 7 and 9 o'clock at night via LinkedIn and just messaging out. And I said, why are you doing it? He said, because other people aren't. And I thought that was a really interesting point of about, let's not just follow the crowd, do something different, which means that therefore your product, your organization stands out a little bit more. Coming into mindset of sales, what else? Rob's talked about being driven, resilience.
Oh, 100%. I think we talked about that rejection. You've got to probably take, 10, 15 no's before you get that yes. So resilience important. I think that growth and that that growth mindset, that solution focused as well. To sit there and be thinking of solutions. You've got a product. How does that solve your client's solution? I think sometimes it's too easy to just, if you've got an array of products and maybe one's more beneficial from a commission point of view, I'm just going to push that, but it's not quite the right fit, versus a perfect solution that might make that individual slightly less commission maybe in a scenario. But what's the solution, and thinking about how do I overcome that? And that's probably the same as well with some of the rejection. How do I overcome the rejection that I'm getting? And absolutely to the point you've made there, how do I do something different? If I'm getting 15, 20 no's, what's my solution to that? So I think someone who's got that growth mindset and doesn't look at it as, oh, well, I've been rejected again, but I made 50 calls, so that's fine.
Yeah.
What's the different direction we're going to take?
Yeah, and it's looking at the quality of those calls, really. So that goes back to prep, I think, and really understanding your product and service, not just what it does within the company, but what it does for your clients and how it helps them. That gives you the confidence then to speak freely and understand and recognise when people need the service or product that you have. If you don't understand that, then you're not confident in what you're doing. So I think understanding the product and service inside and out, and how it helps people, really does build that confidence, and it's a good starting point. But also I think that we quite often get inside our own heads, and we think that somebody's thinking something that we make assumptions. That's where I'm going with it. And it's trying not to do that, and that's by perhaps making it more about them and asking them more questions, open questions. They should be doing more of the talking and you're doing more of the listening, so you can really take in what they say and understand it, and then you build the confidence to be able to say, yep, this is right for you, or actually, our service is not right for you. I would recommend X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
We've always been in them sales pitches where actually the individual who's pitching is doing the majority of the talking.
Yeah.
And it's not great.
There's a reason why we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, isn't there?
Yeah, you can see the salespeople sometimes they're not listening. They're itching to respond rather than listen. They're kind of waiting to respond, which they're missing crucial information. If they're in a discovery phase and they're just ready to blurt something out, often the prospect's got more to say, and there's some qualification there. It can result in negative effects for the deal and for the relationship in some cases, because no one wants to listen to someone just prematurely pitching at them.
People only buy on price. Explain. Is that true?
No, I don't think it's true. I suppose it depends what you're buying, perhaps. But no, I don't believe that. I think that what tends to happen is, well, your prospect's got their buying process and you've got your sales process. So understanding where they are in their buying process. So, for example, if they know how much something costs and they've done the research, then they're probably coming to you at the point where they're ready, and they may have, it may be about price then, but quite often, let's be honest, whatever service or product we offer, the price is much of a muchness. It's really about what value they're getting within that product or service. So yeah.
One of the best questions I've ever heard, because we'll come on to objections as to why people don't move forward. But on a pricing one, when people say, "Oh, you're too expensive," thinking of that question and mindset again, compared to what? Because they're often not comparing apples with apples. We put together proposals, we look at different value adds, and they say, oh, you're too expensive. Well, actually, compared to what? Because have you got exactly the same offer from customer supplier number one, supplier number two? So making sure that when a buyer says price, that we're absolutely sure that they are comparing the same offering.
For sure.
Prime example of this week where we shared some pricing with a customer who'd given us volumes, so transparent on that, and we priced the response in the room, and we built a good relationship with this customer through several meetings before. We got a bit of a connection who knows somebody, and that response that came out of that was, I was hoping for a price reduction. But then through that questioning that we'd done through qualification was, yes, but we know there's some frustrations currently. What we're saying is within this model, we're looking at X, we're looking at Y, we're looking at Z that should help that going forward. So really it's the value of what you were frustrated with is in there. So what we're saying is if your price is comparable, I'm making an assumption because you said you were looking for a saving, but we're adding that additional value that you're saying is causing you a problem and a frustration. And okay, you can't see it in your pricing, but somewhere in your organisation, it's going to provide the price benefit.
Yeah.
And it's been able to convince people of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the real key.
I have a great example of this. When I worked in the furniture industry, I remember, so we provided furniture products and you could either collect them, you could have them delivered, or you could have them delivered and installed. And I would get this objection all the time of, well, I've seen it on Amazon for this, can I have it for this? Well, yes, you can, but they wanted it delivered and installed. You can, but it's going to arrive to you in a box and you're going to have to put it together yourself. Or you can pay 20 quid or whatever, and it's in a room of your choice. It's built, we take away all the packaging. Which would you like to go for? And that's,
It's that value, isn't it?
Option-based sale. Let's move on to if people aren't deciding on price, why are they deciding to move forward with you, Rob?
Yeah, I always find there's a fine line between price and value because ultimately price is asking the why is it that price? Ultimately decisions in my industry, when you're talking data, you're talking cyber, are you really wanting to potentially risk offloading key decisions to someone who's perhaps not as senior, which might be a reason behind the price, but ultimately it's the experience, it's the service, it's the relationships, it's the understanding of where you operate. So if we're talking verticals, we might specialise in a specific vertical like social housing, for instance, charities, whatever it may be. You're paying for that knowledge. If you're going for the lowest cost option, they might not have that knowledge. So there's various factors as to why someone makes a decision, and it could be as simple as I like this person, but unpicking why is crucial.
Yeah. Pricing and value add. Talk to me around why a prospect would choose your product and service above price.
I think it's finding what that does in their organisation and what's that benefit. It might be an IT solution as we're talking about, and it might be then that gives some compliance. So I think it's really anchoring in on, okay, you've got a product. What does that resolve, or what does that do for their organisation? And it's finding sometimes what looks like the initial benefit isn't the actual benefit. So IT and security, let's talk about that. I don't got a couple of experts in the room, but on the face of it, that just looks like IT. People think about computers. From a sales point of view, what's that end goal? What does that mean to you as an organisation if you haven't got your data secure? It costs a lot more than probably what these guys are pitching at, and it's getting to that end point.
So what you've just highlighted there is, again, we've all been in sales pitches where you talk about your previous experience of delivering this, delivering that. Often the prospect that's in front of you isn't interested in your background and what you've done previously. They're only interested in them and how your product and service is going to benefit them in the future. The after side of things. Andy, who we know well. Hello, Andy. Thinking about how that particular prospect is going to benefit after you've had that time, that product, that service with them. How does sales differ from account management? And the question there is around, again, I get to meet plenty of business leaders who have done a deal with a good customer, but aren't fully utilizing the opportunity within that client. Yeah. So where does sales end and where does business development, account management, and utilizing, all of these skills that you have? Talk to me around that further ongoing opportunity, Rob.
So you all heard the terms hunter, farmer. We've all heard that account management, new business sales. I'm a big believer that everyone is in sales in some capacity. Whether it's you going in and delivering a program of work, you're representing a business, you're in amongst an environment where potentially they would have a need or a requirement in some capacity. Different skill sets. My background is new business, so if you were to categorize me, I would be more on the hunting side, but equally understanding the customer, having that relationship, and all thinking from the same hymn book and thinking, right, well, we're all on the same journey, we're all part of the same business. What are we trying to get out of this relationship with the customer, and what are they trying to get back from us?
Yeah.
And just being clear on that and managing that in the right way is so important.
Yeah. Account management, very different from new business development.
So I'm the opposite of Rob. I'm in the farmer world. That's probably where I have a bit more influence. But I think a lot of times the sale process is short, often driven by the customer's tender timescales or whatever it may be. So it is usually that one product and it's driven on that, and that's what's in scope. I think the account management is much more of that long term, seeing the wider site. We go into a lot of businesses, our account managers will be in there walking around, and that's where your other products then, there's that visual, or just through that conversation, as you say, getting to know people, building on that, it comes up in conversation. And maybe over a term of a contract, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, there's lots of opportunity that develops out of that, all the verticals or the recommendations that can come. So I think the account management's a much slower pace, but I think there's a lot more opportunity to develop the product that the salespeople have sold, or to find that opportunity to add additional value to the customer.
So even if an organization hasn't got the luxury of having account managers, I think what we're saying here is spend time, go back in with that client, understand how they're getting on, have that relationship with them, go for a walk, have a look around, spot different opportunities, and begin asking questions. Your role, Jenna, in terms of hunter, farmer, and that longer term relationship, what is it you enjoy most about that particular relationship with a client?
Do you know, I'd say over time it's probably changed from I preferred account management
Yeah.
always, and as I've got a little bit older, actually I do really like the early part, getting to know. It's like dating, isn't it? A little bit. But just on,
Dates do you go on?
well, none now, only with my wife. It's really interesting. So, how our business is structured, once, and let's be honest, it's the most important thing is to deliver what you promised, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going out there, I'm building a relationship with our new clients. They sign up, they're handed over to an onboarding team that then puts all the technology in place. And that's difficult for me because I'm sort of handing this relationship over to another team. So we've put things in place so that it's a very smooth transition. They are handed over, but then I come back in for account management because you've got to make sure we're measured by our service. So I can say anything, can't I, at the front end? Anybody can, but actually you've got to make sure that what you've said at the beginning, you're delivering continuously through the service. So it's actually really important to be continuously in touch and having regular reviews to make sure that the service level is exactly what you've promised them it's going to be.
Yeah. Getting the customer is difficult, keeping them is even tougher.
Absolutely, but it's the if you look after them, they'll stay with you and certainly in IT, there's actually a lot of companies out there that stay with poor IT because they're frightened to switch.
Yeah.
But it's very important to look after them, because actually it's easy to switch.
Yeah.
So you have got to look after them.
What's changed for you personally to go from account management were a preference to now sales is preferred? Is there anything from a personal point of view?
I suppose I'm probably a bit better at it than I am the account management stuff, maybe.
I think maybe
don't
what
know.
you've seen there is a customer journey, and therefore you can share that journey with a prospect. around the benefits that they've got. But it's interesting. We often start off, don't we, as kind of new business, and that's the thrill of it. You've done your apprenticeship by going through the account management, hand holding clients, and then that's the information that you can share with new prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose relationships are, like we've said, the most important thing in sales. But how you keep those relationships is by providing good account management.
I think we were talking about this the other day, and maturity, not in age, but in terms of your time with the business or your time in business. And it's a bit, we were comparing, it's like when you're young and you go out, you've got to be in the latest clothes, you've got to fit in, and you're concerned about what everybody thinks. So then I think that's when you're in that, as a salesperson, that rejection's difficult. As you get a little bit older, you might stop buying all the designer clothes, and you grow into your own skin. And I'm finding that personally now, when I'm in a sales conversation, I will ask the question that I wouldn't have asked 10 years ago, because if they say no, I'm handling the rejection and the resilience better, and I'm more mature to not take it personal. And I think that's why there's a few people I've talked to recently who've said exactly the same as you. I was more comfortable in account management because there wasn't as much pressure. Now, as I've grown into my career, I'm much more comfortable in that sales space.
I think there's an aspect for me, though, that I'm not technical. So actually, I provide more value on the business side than I do the IT side. So I think there's a bit of that there for me as well, certainly in this role. But yeah, I 100% agree with everything you've just said.
I want to come on to give us some insight into the best questions a business owner can ask when they are looking to get a deal over the line. Give us some of best questions that you want to ask a prospect. Rob?
Why and how, a lot of the time. First and foremost, you need to understand the drivers behind whatever service, product or services you're selling. You need to understand the drivers behind why they're looking to achieve something. It's like we talk about websites as a mechanism to converting customers.
Why do you want a new website?
Yeah.
Because I want to sell more.
Precisely. Yeah. Ultimately, same applies with drills and things like that. You're not interested in the drill, you want the hole. So it's understanding, as we talked about, Andy Bounds, the afters. Why are you wanting to engage us? What are the key components to success in this respect, in this project, whatever that may be. So it's all about the drivers, and then you can start to delve into the intricacies once you've nailed down those drivers of what that service or that product can look like.
Best questions? You've come out of a sales meeting and you thought, yeah, that was a good question.
I think being really bold and asking that why would you not come with our business or our organisation? Because you've got to be ready to take some negative feedback there, but that negative feedback could be absolute gold going forward.
Why would you not choose us?
Yeah. What is it about today that's made our product or service not the one you would choose?
See, that's really interesting. That type of question, you're asking that in a prospect meeting. But again, isn't that a great thing in the right time to go back to a client and say, thank you for doing business with us. We've been working together now for 6 to 12 months. Can I ask you, why did you choose us?
Absolutely.
Because we often think that this is the value that we're offering into a client. And actually, when a client says something different, it allows us to get that terrible world of marketing, going. I know none of us are marketeers. It's boring, isn't it? But, what we've just picked up there, why did you choose us, is a great question to ask in a prospect meeting. But also, that's a great question to ask 6 to 12 months down the line. Yeah. Why did you choose us? It's a scary question to ask, isn't it? But it can absolutely shape your messaging going forward, because we think we're offering this, and yet the client is seeing something completely different.
100%. And when we talk about business culture, it's how we do things around here. We might have a preconception of what that culture is within our businesses, but the best people to ask are the customers. What's your perceived impression of our culture? What does that look like to you? And like you said, if you work with us for 5 years, you've probably got a good feel about what our strengths and weaknesses are. So, and then you can adopt that into your service messaging, your approach.
100%, yeah, I agree.
Give us some great questions you like to ask.
I mean, I can't think of any specific questions, but for me, after the first meeting, it's trying to get at that point. How interested are you in working with us? Do you feel
how likely are you to move forward?
Yeah. And certainly when you sort of getting to know one another and you're figuring out what their business does, how your service fits into what they need, asking very open questions, and like we've already talked about it, making sure that they're talking more. But I don't have any specific questions, I think. But for clothes, I feel if you get everything right, you don't even have to ask them for the business. They're like, when can I sign up?
Yeah, what's the next step? And that subtle close. I don't want to touch too much on the mechanics of closing, etc. But I often think that there's a great question to ask is, do you have any objections of moving forward? And when the answer comes no, then you have an automatic close. But let's just pick on this word objections. I think that is a great question to ask anyone. Do you have any concerns or any objections about moving forward? What's your favourite objection and how do you like to get over it?
So I think you need to get the objection out as early as possible. And we've talked about discovery meeting. When you're talking about the solution, if you can find out before you propose what the key drivers are to doing things or what the potential objections are ahead of time, that's great. But pricing's a classic one, isn't it? Everyone's always pushing back on price, and being able to handle that in the right way and unpick why the price is an issue. And we're coming back to the value piece again.
Yeah.
Is it the price?
Is this affordability or is this value?
Correct.
Yeah.
Fine line.
Yeah.
Fine line.
People say, oh, price. Is it affordability? Can you afford that price, or is it you're not seeing the value?
Yeah.
Again, is a good line to throw in. Favorite objection?
It's always price, isn't it? But cost to change.
Okay.
Yeah, we come
Tell us a bit more about that.
In terms of what we do, sometimes we're quite intricate in a customer's premises, and our competitors will be too.
Yeah.
So the cost of removing equipment and things like that.
Okay.
I think the two are, well, what's the cost if you don't change? Because you entered into this process for a reason. But then also there's an element on us. We know that. So how prepared are we to manage that change and show that actually we won't have that disruption? So it's on us to have a really strong onboarding plan. I think we touched on that earlier. Is what's the onboarding plan to minimise that cost? But certainly one that we come up the cost of change.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because again, occasionally we'll get objections of, oh, come back to me in 6 months' time. What would have changed?
Yeah.
In that 6 months, what, is this a red herring? But what's going to be different in 6 months' time? Favorite objection?
Yeah, I would say probably so a lot of companies, I touched on it before, are scared to move or they don't really want to switch. So they put up with bad IT because they think that to switch they're going to lose control. It's going to be really awfully disruptive. But we have a very, very thorough onboarding process, and we can actually we've provided case studies of how this is what the process looks like. This is how easy it is to switch. And actually, if you want to talk to a couple of our recent clients that we've onboarded and get their experience of how it's felt, to kind of put them at ease. That's probably been my favourite objection, because it's diminishing that fear that they have of switching.
There's no better, is there, than being bold enough to say, don't worry, I'll let you speak to some of my clients and they can tell you the experience that they've had. Great stuff. As we just wrap up, I'd like you just to position yourself as speaking to a business owner. They're 2 to 3 years in, they want to get into the world of growth. Give us some advice for that business owner about selling more and putting more growth into that business. Rob?
Yeah, so hopefully none of my competitors are listening to this. But yeah, in terms of growth, you need to really put yourself in the customer's shoes. Go out, do research, understand what the customer in your market is actually looking for, because it might not be what you perceive it is. So things I've done personally is I've done surveys and I've gone to some of my trusted contacts and said, we want to be best in class. What are your problems? What do you wish your industry had? And build it around there. Don't assume you really understand it. Speak to the people on the ground who have the need, and build it around that. If you get your product down from day one, that makes life a lot easier.
Excellent. Johnny?
Probably just building off the back of what Rob said. I think you've got your product and you're confident with what your market is and who your customers are. Define that strategy and then be really confident in going for it. Don't worry. We talked earlier about that fear of rejection. Just push on. go for it and try to develop it. So I understand with some smaller business as well, that one deal might change their life or their business, but try to make sure you've got more than one egg in the basket, I think is key. And don't worry too much about focus on developing that well-rounded pipeline.
Great stuff. Jen?
Can I give a couple of pieces of advice?
Of course
Is
you
that
can.
all
Go
right?
on.
So just going back to understanding who your ideal customer is, actually look at who your existing customers are. There'll be a theme, and whether that's a sector or something that they struggled with when they came to you, whatever, but there'll be a theme, and make sure that you're targeting businesses like the ones that you're already working with, because they'll be your biggest fans and where you're adding the most value. And then be really consistent in your sales activity. Even if you introduce a power hour, so 1 hour a day, where you concentrate on prospecting, researching your ideal clients, and actually reaching out to people, and do it like I brush my teeth twice a day, every day, without fail. Make sure that sales power hour is exactly the same as
A
that.
sales power hour. Well, one thing I'd just add to that is if you want to speak to people, there's no better time to do it than 8:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock. That's when you'll get to speak to more people than what you would expect. And also make sure you get that 10-second elevator pitch right.
Yeah,
Sales to me is almost like a little bit of a game of tennis, isn't it? Where you want to fire that ball back over the net, you want it in their court, you want to ask them a question, you want to get them thinking, and do less talking. Let them explain how you can fit your product and service to them. Thank you all. I knew this would be a good episode. We've talked in great detail today about relationships. We've talked a lot about building that rapport with them. Rejection. That's the 3 R's. We might have to call this the 3 R's. The 3 R's episode. Rob, just best takeaway from today's session.
Yeah, I think it's been good to sort of bounce ideas around and understand how you all operate and your views on sales, and obviously some similarities across the board there.
Yeah.
But we're all in a similar position. We've all had similar challenges, and it's quite reassuring to know that we're in a similar boat. Ultimately.
Yeah, it's not easy, but have a level of reassurance that there's other people out
We're all
there going through it.
together, yeah.
Johnny, best takeaway?
I think it is that reassurance that actually we all have the same problems, but we all have the same successes.
Yeah.
So just keep going. The rejection's going to be there, but ultimately I think we're all on the right lines doing the right things.
Great stuff. Jen?
I've just really enjoyed the experience. I've never done a podcast before. And yeah, I can't say same as these two. Kind of just yeah. I've enjoyed it, so thanks for
No, you're more than welcome. And you know what? Why do we do these TABcasts? Well, hopefully it's giving some value to business owners, business leaders. This is the Alternative Board. My name's Liam Prendergast. We run the Alternative Board here in the Wakefield region with my co-owner Simon Banks. So if you are a business leader and you want to get involved in this great community, please do reach out to us. And we promise we won't sell to you. We will just build relationships with you. Rob, Johnny, Jenna, thank you very much for joining us. Do subscribe on Spotify, on YouTube, and enjoy sales. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Liam Prendergast, co-owner of the Alternative Board in the Wakefield region. You can find me on LinkedIn and www.thealternativeboard.co.uk.
Jenna Rigg from Singularity. You can find me on LinkedIn or our website, www.singularity.co.uk.
Johnny Parkinson, General Manager at Elise. You can find me on LinkedIn or on our website at www.elise.com.
Rob Wilkinson, founder at the Governance, Risk and Compliance Hub, TAGRC Hub, and you can find me on LinkedIn like the others, and also at www.grc-hub.co.uk.